Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld on why we loved Stan Lee. Stan Lee, where do you even start? Seriously. Growing up as a kid in the 1970s, Stan Lee's name was in every Marvel comic book I pulled off the spinner rack. Stan Lee Presents was at the forefront of every dynamic splash page that opened any Marvel publication. He was a larger-than-life presence, his image drawn into the actual comics, and at times, as a caricature illustrated atop the masthead of his popular Stan's Soapbox, where he wrote about a wide variety of topics outside of comics. Regularly featured in the back pages, Stan's Soapbox exposed us to his unique voice and personality, inviting us into his personal views on everything from bigotry to racial division. Simply put, he was the personality behind it all. Stan Lee was Marvel Comics, period. The comics Stan created with Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby were my favorites, and they are the twin pillars that Marvel was built upon. Stan's tenures on Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four are two of the greatest, most legendary, and most influential in the history of the art form. No matter how big and cosmic the threat our heroes faced, the personal matters were what drove our interest in these characters. Ben Grimm's torment over his personal appearance as the Thing, or Peter Parker's concern over the health of his Aunt May, were the aspects of Stan's characters that made them so relatable. This was what set Stan Lee and Marvel apart from everything else. The industry has been playing catch-up ever since. I'll get this out of the way up front. Spider-Man is, for me, Stan Lee's greatest creation. It's his most signature achievement. Alongside Mr. Ditko and later John Romita, what they created was pure magic. Peter Parker was the Harry Potter of my generation. We cared about what food he ate, the clothes he wore, and whether he could pay the rent, as much as we cared about whether he would survive the latest encounter with Dr. Octopus or Green Goblin. The fact that I'm still torn, some 40 years after the fact, between who was the true love of Peter's life, Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, that should tell you how resonant Stan's work was. Stan would often talk of Shakespeare and explain how comics represented a form of literature equally important to kids as classic plays and sonnets. How many of us found our vocabulary expanded as a result of Stan's scripts and dialogue? In school, I got my highest marks in English, and I knew it was a direct result of Stan's writing. How many others can say the same? I repeatedly investigated what a hoary host could be, or what exactly an insolent mortal consisted of. Don't even get me started on the ultimate nullifier. Thank you for pushing the boundaries of my youthful learning, Stan. Those hard-fought battles with educators and libraries to carry the Marvel collections yielded countless dividends. As a child obsessed with all things Marvel, I sat on the edge of my seat as the cartoons and live-action television series started to dominate the airwaves. Saturday mornings were filled with Marvel superheroes, Spider-Man and his amazing friends, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Woman. Even the Thing received his own animated show. On the live-action front, Spider-Man on CBS was a big deal if you were a 10-year-old. To my young eyes, it was an absolute thrill seeing my favorite character leap from page to screen. Then, The Incredible Hulk launched on Friday nights, also on CBS. It was appointment television for everyone my age. Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno were immortalized by that show. I see it on the convention circuit as men my age melt over Lou and pour out their affections over their childhood memories of the series. This was all by Stan's brilliant design. You see, having conquered the world of publishing, he was not content to simply tower over the comic book industry from his office high above Manhattan. He felt that Marvel's characters would best be served on stage and screen, so he headed west to start that process. He even informed us of this fact via Stan's Soapbox, including us, the readers, in his quest. Within a relatively short period of time, those fruits came to bear. The Incredible Hulk was the most successful of those early Hollywood attempts, and Stan would continue to work tirelessly to bring the Marvel Universe to life in film throughout the following decades. No matter the benchmark, Stan was never satisfied. It's what pushed him, and it was absolutely infectious. There was always another mountain to scale, another territory to conquer. He was tireless in his efforts. My first encounter with Stan came at a convention in Los Angeles in the late 1980s. I was a young up-and-comer just starting to work on the line of X-Men books that he was also responsible for. Stan was firmly rooted in Los Angeles by now, pursuing his agenda of expanding Marvel's library into feature films. He was more generous and kind than anyone in his position had any reason to be. We did a panel together, and he welcomed me as a peer. I was overwhelmed by his charisma and charm. It was the highlight of my career at that point. A few years later, I shared 3 days filming what would amount to 3 separate videos for a series focusing on comic book personalities called The Comic Book Greats. My peers and I spent long hours with Stan, in front of the camera and behind the scenes. We watched him cut loose, sharing tales of his storied career in publishing and entertainment. We even watched as Batman creator Bob Kane ribbed Stan about his own success with Batman as a movie. "You know you're jealous, Stan," Bob would say. "You wish you had a character as successful as Batman." Stan was polite and charming throughout Bob's insufferable taunting. If only we realized then how fortune would more than favor Stan down the line. It would take only a decade or so to pull even and, some would say, surpass Mr. Kane's threshold. My 3 children have grown up in a world of Stan Lee's making. As teenagers, they have never known anything other than a culture dominated by Marvel comics. "Dad, we don't read as many comics as you, but me and my friends, we're Marvel movie fans." My son informed me of this fact as I dropped him off at his 16th birthday celebration, where he saw Captain America: Civil War with 10 of his friends at our local IMAX theater. A Marvel fan has grown up watching the stories I grew up with. Transformed and enhanced with technological storytelling my generation could only have dreamed of. Stan Lee's Marvel comics have roared to spectacular life on screen for over a decade, dominating the box office and altering Hollywood's definition of blockbuster filmmaking in the process. As my wife and I were seated at the world premiere of Black Panther, she turned and asked me, "Who created Black Panther?" I answered, "We're still deeply ensconced in Stan Lee and Jack Kirby lore, honey." Stan had his eye on diversity as much as anyone among his peers, always evolving, changing with the times. The films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are indeed spectacular, but they come from a very specific playbook written and orchestrated by Stan Lee. The comic books are the roadmap for the unique superhero pop culture that my son and his friends have adopted as their own. I am so happy that Stan watched it all come to life over the past 10 years. Sometimes, I would be fortunate to find myself standing right next to him as he walked the red carpet for one of his latest releases, beaming with pride. His creative spark, coupled with his business savvy, propelled the Marvel universe far beyond its newsprint origins, and we are all the richer as a result. Having traveled with Stan extensively these past several years, riding the same convention show circuit and dates, I can tell you from personal experience how much he was energized by the love and affection of the fans. I shared a fairly aggressive series of shows with him, traveling to Cincinnati, New York, LA, Rhode Island, and Boston in successive weeks. I sat with him on long 6-hour flights to and from the East Coast. I was never more inspired by him than during this period. I gave up my seats to Stan, as he didn't much care for the bulkhead, or swapped meals, as I learned we shared a mutual distaste for sour cream. I came to view him as the grandfather we all cherish more than any comic book megastar, and traveling to meet his fans meant the world to him. As long as he was physically capable, he truly loved bouncing from city to city to do so, no matter the distance. The fans gave him an energy that provided a powerful charge for him, an energy that kept him going deep into his later years. You could watch it carry him and provide an extra skip in his step. That in turn inspired me. How could I not be similarly energized by the enthusiasm and eager spirit put forth by this amazing specimen, some 44 years older than me? I gained newfound respect for Stan at every new port, watching all new generations of fans greet the Walt Disney of their age. He loved every one of you. We should all be so thrilled by what we do. The mind boggles at all the achievements and work Stan put into his 95 years. The books will come. Films commemorating his life are probably being greenlit as I write this. I'd suggest a 10-hour maxi series, and that still might not cover all the ground he did. Stan, you are legend. You are immortal. Your works will live for ages to come. Thank you for being a genuine, true believer and sharing your passion with us all. Rob Liefeld in Variety Magazine.
And I thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Stan.
Never had a better time.
Okay.
And I hope we can do it again.
All right. Thank you.
I've addressed this on my podcast many times, and my soft landing is because I cannot believe later this year we will turn on the TV again and Ryan Seacrest will be bringing us American Idol. The brand is American Idol. He is the host. He has been the nonstop host. Stan Lee was the Ryan Seacrest of Marvel Comics.
I think the guy was capping so much. That's why we needed a recap. There was so much cap going on. I don't even know where to start.
So you saying he lied this whole interview that we just did? The whole interview's a lie.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spin. This is Mars here. I'm here with my boys, Cal and Petey. Say what's up, gents.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, ready to rock. Hot. So my boy Petey found this interview with Rob Liefeld on Bible-led violence in comics at San Diego Comic-Con. It was posted by the comic book historians. They talk about Deadpool, talk about all kinds of stuff. So Petey, you know, he said some very controversial things.
No, we're not concerned about all that other stuff he said. It's what he said about Stan Lee. It's the same thing with all these other guys. Stan Lee passes away, and all of a sudden, everybody has a mountain-sized amount of courage, talking smack that they didn't say while he was alive. Rob Liefeld is going in here saying that, hey, it's not like Stan did everything. I think he gets too much credit. And, you know, look at the stuff that Kirby did and Heck and, you know, Ditko. And I'm like, dude, the only reason why we even know the names of those people is because of an editor named Stan Lee. I don't understand this. You know, this is somebody who actually got to work with Stan, did the shows with Stan too, and Stan when it was hot, right? When it was good, you know, that's when it was. And I'm pretty certain if it was hot now, we'll still be doing it. But this 180 that these guys do about Stan Lee, and they knew him, or at the very least, they had access to him so they could know more if they actually wanted to. And the man passes away, and then all of a sudden, everybody becomes this activist for all of these other artists that they were wonderfully silent about while Stan Lee was alive. I find that to be very curious, suspicious even. But the bottom line is, when other people were not crediting artists, inkers, even colorists at that point, Stan Lee was doing it, and they never say that. They never say that. It's like, hey, you as a kid, how did you know who was drawing the book? Oh, because it was here in the credits. How did you know that Jack was the king of comics? Oh, because it was here in the credits. Oh, well, who was in charge of that? Stan Lee. Stan Lee. I don't get you. I don't get these guys. It makes my blood boil.
Well,
I can see.
Let me just add in. The thing is that there's a lot of sentiment, and this is total agreement with Cal. But there's a lot of sentiment out there, and a lot of I guess fake reporting and fake historical looking at stuff and inferring things and saying, well, read this guy, read what he says. He pointed out.
Use the other word. Use the other word.
What? What's the other word?
Lying.
Lying. Well, the thing they're lying. They're making up their own stuff. And the thing is that regretfully, Rob also, you know, he likes to create waves. And sometimes he likes to follow waves. Now you have to imagine back when he left Marvel, and they were the biggest champions of Kirby outside of people, who were, pros in comic books, and they kind of propelled his name even bigger, and they actually did a comic with him. The thing is that they also appeared on Stan's show. Now at the same time, Todd McFarlane isn't in this group because he's always said some things, great things about Stan, and says, hey, the Marvel method was good. It allowed the artists to be the directors, kind of directing the action, that sort of thing. So it's not taking over. You get whatever's in your head. It might be more visual than the artist, but they've taken that aspect and gone further, saying that Stan Lee was a showman, that he came in, he was like a carnival barker. He just talked all the stuff, sold his own name, and then he went home. Which regretfully we only got from Kirby. Now Rob Liefeld's also leading this charge, saying that, hey, Stan took too much credit and all this other stuff. Now the thing is that Stan, especially with Kirby, has said they were co-writers on the Fantastic Four. He's given him the credit. He hasn't, the credits on there aren't particular, but those are credits that they already said. Many historians had said Kirby asked for the credits to read a Stan and Jack production or a Lee and Kirby production, that sort of thing. But this thing of turning, when you've been connected to Stan, you could have said all this stuff. When you did Heroes Reborn, when they did the release, and here was it, the Variety, and they had this Standing with Stan, interviewed with Stan, that's the time when you can be like, you know, and we want to publicly, you know, give credit to Kirby. Now they say privately that in their deal, some money went to Kirby through the Heroes Reborn deal, but that was something they had to say in an interview. They're standing there with Stan and saying, we're back. And no, Stan said they learned their lesson. It's like, we have too, that sort of thing. So it's just tough to see. It's tough to see someone, but actually, it's not tough to see. Actually, I'm just going to be direct. He, you know, knowing that comic history is basically a patchwork now, and there's not many voices and not many true historians, and it's not like, I guess, World War.
It's not Rob Liefeld. It's not Rob Liefeld.
But
you can't go to Rob Liefeld and get accurate history about Marvel 1961. I mean, the guys, unfortunately, most of the guys who could speak to it and already have spoken to it are gone. I think who's probably like one of the few, like Roy Thomas and Jim Steranko. I don't know if there's any.
Destroy them. They're trying to destroy Roy, saying, "Oh, Roy gave such and such this minimal plot here. This is proof that he never plotted anything." Like, come on, they're going too far with it. And they're saying, which was the most dynamic way to work on comic books, the Marvel method of coming up with hey, here's a plot, or I want to just have a conference with the artist, and then the artist takes something where the writer might not be as visual, you know, takes it and blows it up even further. Now, at the same time, this is, you know, even though DC and a lot of other comic companies have moved away from it, anyone who's a top artist is given the thing to, like, say, treat it like a super plot. Anything you need to change, just change. That sort of thing. So it's like it's still in practice, but the writer is putting in more of their dialogue as they go along. You know, but it's a visual thing. So it's just tough where he's been friendly with Stan. You know, been on. The thing is, his Stan show wasn't in necessarily conjunction. Was it? No, because when he did Spawn, he was doing stuff. I don't know who his business was when he was doing the TV show, but they all showed up there, and you know, everyone who left Marvel, Chris Claremont was there also, was doing Stan's show, and I think Harvey Kurtzman. But it's just tough to see him, you know, now pumping this thing up when it's easier to say that they were collaborators, and due to the fact there was a assembly line of comic books and they were rushing. And Kirby always was extremely fast. He took on a lot of stuff on his shoulders, but they were still collaborators on some of the creations. The hard part is that you don't give Stan's brother, Larry Lieber, any credit. You take credit away, because Kirby took credit away from Steve Ditko, took credit away from Don Heck. So it's just
he took credit away from Stan Lee. He took credit away from everybody.
Stan is the worst, because if you say Stan took too many credit, Kirby said Stan did nothing. He didn't say, hey, I know I would provide the plot and the description. He said he did no writing. So that's the hard part when you look at it and say, well, Kirby meant no. I read it. He doesn't mean that. And he said it to Stan on the thing. He said, I wrote it. And he's like, no, your words didn't go into the dialogue. When they're arguing over it. Say, you wouldn't let me write.
Yeah, and it's this twisted mentality. Unfortunately, it's like this real corporate thing that they like to do with these situations. Because while Stan is living, Stan's this, he's the affable leader of the Marvel Merry Marching Society through the films. They want that. Okay, they want that particular connection. And then when he passes away, everybody's like, well, there's no more money in that. Talking about how nice this guy is. We got to do the other one. Hey, the dark side of Stan Lee. That's where the money's at the end of the day. And unfortunately, we have a public, especially with the internet, that just feeds on this type of stuff. And it's not true. It's not true. Especially when I look at someone like, I know Rob Liefeld has to know this is not true. he has to know what what was allocated where and there, or I would just be totally, I would be very, very surprised, because Rob Liefeld tends to know better than average comic book history. So for him to say something like, come on, dude, come on.
Well,
I know you know how this stuff worked. Okay, I know you knew the inner workings. I think this sounds, it plays really well. It plays really well at the end of the day. But that for what purpose? Because the bottom line, if it switched again, what are you going to come back and say? What are you going to do then? Come back and say, oh yeah, well, Stan was a visionary. No.
well, what was it? I think there's also another portion to Rob, which is he having the same argument with Fabian Nicieza on Deadpool, that Fabian did nothing. He could have got a janitor to script those books, the X-Force, and it would have worked.
Unfortunately, he got Fabian Nicieza, so he gets credit. That's how it works.
Yes, yeah. And the thing is, the hard part is, even though he allowed Fabian Nicieza, as far as scripting, allowed it to be a lot looser. If you read, I think the scripters of the X-Men, where Jim Lee was plotting or Willis Portacio plotting, and the artwork isn't always clear, and kind of the acting. What Marvel used to be good at was the acting of the characters, the actual performances. That's what Stan would kind of play to and add a lot of information to, and go his own way sometimes. And this is what Fabian Nicieza was doing, and anyone scripting those books. And I think you could see when they went to Image, they were hurting really bad because they didn't have that guy to do that. Now, Rob actually has Joe Casey redoing the Youngbloods, and now people are saying, oh wow, this deluxe edition is really good. But he's just scripting it. It's just a better scripter on the same thing. For me, it doesn't work well for me, because it's the same pages and the same stuff that's there. But he's selling it now with a new scripter. So you could put anybody on it, Youngblood, we put anyone on it. Now he took that anybody off of it and put a person that he feels is doing a stronger script for the entire run of 10 issues. Only 10 issues. One of the most successful comic books in only 10 issues. Saddest thing.
Yeah. So I mean, what, gents? I mean, just
the other thing I would push on is that these guys do these so-called comic book historian, and they're doing this stuff, and they never push back. They never push back. There's never the follow-up question or the clarifying question. It's just, hey, whatever you got to say. Because we're dealing with the art. So, you were there, you actually drew some issues, you created Deadpool. So, just say whatever you like, and I'm just going to laugh at it, so on and so forth, whether it's true or not, whether it's accurate.
Welcome back to the comic book history.
But this is the comic book historian. There's never like, hey, wait a second here. This is, we did, we actually looked into this, and I don't know if this is quite accurate. What do you have to say to this or this? Were you aware of this? No, that never comes up. That never comes up. Just, let it roll, right? Run and gun.
Well, I gotta push back with that, because the comic book historian, if you look at their notes in the page, they actually list the history of DC Comics, origin of Marvel Comics videos, CBH videos, comic book flip through. They talk about different things there about how different people disagree with this clearly in some of the stuff that they've done. So,
but do they do it in the interview? Putting a footnote in later, whatever. Do you do it in the interview? Do you hold this person to what they're saying? That's a good interview. And I'm not saying there's got to be like a political interview, like you're interviewing the president of the United States and you repeat the question 3 times, and the guy's like squirming and so on and so forth. But you can ask a clarifying question and make it obvious that, hey, this is not necessarily accurate. You can do that. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be rude about it. You can do it very professionally. Okay. But putting a footnote, most people don't even read the footnote.
All right. I'm not disagreeing. Actually, I'm saying I understand, because you want Rob Liefeld to be your buddy. And he comes back to part 2.
There's that.
The kayfabe guys. Rob Liefeld was a regular on the kayfabe show. Like he literally,
like somebody wanted Stan Lee to be his buddy.
Wow, that was a good one.
Nothing wrong with that, bro. Nothing wrong with that.
So yeah,
hey, Stan, what's going on? What's going on? You don't got a crystal ball, do you? because you don't know what I'm going to do in the future.
Well, I think that's the thing, and I think, you know, even talking about in truth, this is the other thing. Stan, when he was working with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and Don Heck and Dick Ayers and Sal Brodsky, was not a carnival barker. He was an editor and a writer, right? He was managing Marvel, and he had all these things. He was trying to get these books out, and he was trying to keep things going. And then if he had space, he would add a new superhero, right? And he brought in his brother, then he tried to bring in writers, then he find like all this time. Until when we see that one interview where he does the college thing, he is not the Stan we know now. He is personable, but he is very serious and straight, right? The thing when he becomes like publisher, that's when the Stan persona comes out. And then I think adding in the funky Flashman thing, it kind of built up that later. But while he's at Marvel, he was, you know, I think before he even had a wig, you know, he was just a regular guy. So ultimately, you know, that's the thing of that people miss. They think of the 70s, 80s, 90s Stan in comparison to the guy who was the editor and writer at Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I agree with you guys, and thank you for bringing that clarification to people regarding Liefeld and comic historian. We got to take you to task. Please, you know, clarify what you're saying with him. So, hey, if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, spin a rock.
We are
We're out.
out.